Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Digging with Dave, the AP podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be talking with AP's VDC team about how they help our customers and help our internal teams and everything they do in the world of VDC. So with that, I'm going to do a quick turnover and they can introduce themselves.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Dave. I'm Jacob Beckham. I'm the Senior Virtual Construction Manager. It's a long title, basically to say I head up the Midwest program here. I kind of worked my way into VDC from just field experience. I got my foot in the door early on back in 2012 with working in laser scanning, believe it or not. I didn't really have a construction background, but that really piqued my interest in how much value it provided. I really liked the ability to kind of interact across the aisle early on, even before finishing my degree and my internship. Doing that showed how incredibly valuable it could be just to have that edge of technology. And I think it was really, I've always thought towards the future. And so VDC kind of just ended up calling my name.
Mm-hmm. Jordan?
Hi, I'm Jordan. I'm an assistant VDC manager. So effectively, I help out with the VDC process in all facets. A little background on me and how I got to where I am today. So I grew up the daughter of a carpenter. Construction was all around me. I was out there at 12 with the big magnet rolling around, picking up nails. But yeah, so then I went to college, started off in a biomedical engineering program, decided that wasn't where my heart was. So made the transition to architecture and got my degree in architecture. In that process, I was looking at a lot of 3D modeling things from the design side. But then, graduation comes and you start to look at the big picture. And I was called home to the construction world and kind of enjoy seeing both sides of that and kind of reaching across the aisle, as Jacob had mentioned, and helping out in that process and getting stuff built. So
Awesome. Sam, welcome.
Hello, my name's Sam Anderson, VDC manager for AP, mostly work on day-to-day coordination on projects. Got my start in mechanical engineering when I was getting my degree, ended up getting into a little bit of CAD design, found out I was really into the whole problem-solving aspect of when it comes to construction. Had a great time working through some really powerful projects and find myself here today, doing it still.
Awesome, thanks. So to kick into it here, one of the things that for a guy like me who's been doing this a long time, that's really fascinated about VDC and the changes that it's bringing to our industry is what it does for us in terms of, the documents. 35 years ago, we used to walk around with rolls of drawings all the time. And now we've gotten to the point where we can build a building and we don't ever print a piece of paper. So that's always mind-boggling when I tell people that we can do that. So tell us about how, VDC helps us do that.
Right. No, I think that's a great question. The first thing we'll start off with we're whipping around acronyms. We'll just say VDC is virtual design in construction. If you kind of break it down at that basic level, the overall goal we have is here, kind of, we touched on our bios, our backgrounds. It's that intermeshing of design and construction, doing it in a virtual manner. Doesn't mean we're only working in a computer. No. Doesn't mean we heavily emphasize technology and that we go and try our best to help solve difficult problems that have always existed in a new way. Yes. VDC, whatever it is, whether it's model coordination or it's flying drones or if it's laser scanning, all that we are trying to do is solve an existing problem. Used to, instead of laser scanning, you might have pulled a tape measure over several days. Instead of flying a drone, you might have had to do a survey, do your triangulation and go do a traverse. And I've known exactly how painful that can be from field experience. The laser scan cuts that time down to hours versus days or weeks.
Sure.
So,
Jordan, Sam, any thoughts on that one?
yeah, I'll give you another definition. So we throw VDC and BIM around kind of interchangeably. So what BIM stands for is Building Information Modeling. So VDC is kind of more the all-encompassing of all of the processes. If it's, BIM, information modeling, or if it's flying the drones, as Jacob had alluded to in that survey, or reality capture in the form of either open space or laser scanning. Those are all things that fit underneath that VDC umbrella. And VDC is kind of that toolbox that we use to address those problems in creative ways and oftentimes through technology. So that's kind of my little definition spiel, but I hear those two terms kind of thrown around interchangeably, and I just wanted to kind of explain the difference between the two. So, yeah.
Awesome. Sam, any thoughts?
Don't know that it really helps, but I always view VDC as a Swiss Army knife, kind of the situations that you find yourself in the field. As technology's changed as well, it's kind of coming to the aspect that it can help in safety. It can help in, going through checks. So it's just something that's still finding itself in the world of construction. And I think it's just like a Swiss Army knife. You never know what you might get out of it.
So where are we today? Our organization, our company, where do we sit today with VDC, and then talk maybe a little bit about where you see it going?
Yeah, so from when I got hired on about 4 years ago, I kind of came in where the person before me was doing their best with what they had. It was one person for the entire district, and she was doing a fantastic job. Since then, we've grown to 3 just for the Midwest. I believe we're between 6 and 8 people for Colorado, and we're going from 2 to 3 soon in Texas. And we're growing, with our project and our complexity of our projects, we're expanding, kind of every day our roles. Our integration with our project teams has drastically improved just in our 4 years that I've been here. I know Jordan as well, and Sam, in the time that they've been here, they've really gotten in and proven themselves to the people who have been here for a long time, like Dave, especially the people at the project trailer. So I think that the start where AP came from, we had a program starting back to, don't get my dates in a twist, but it's right around that 2000.
It's been a while.
Yeah, 2008, 2010 timeframe. And it was there for a while. It kind of coasted along, and now this is that revamping back, starting 4 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see now that as a company we have 3 people that are dedicated to it. So the company has made the investment to do it, and it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere, and it's great to see all you doing that. So
yeah, well, and credit to Sam and Jordan. They've been on the front lines more than I have even recently, just showing day to day. Here's the value. Here's your standard process. Oh, and the light bulb moment that the superintendent would get.
exactly. I was just going to mention that it seems like the more exposure we have to this as teams, project teams, the more we like it.
Right.
The more we see the value, the power of it. It's fun to watch a superintendent, like you say, with that kind of light bulb moment, going, hey, this can really help. This can make my life easier.
Yeah.
Right. So that's awesome. I'll put you on the spot. How about if you're a customer of ours or we're in an interview? If I'm the customer, what's the value to me? Why is it important to me that you do what you do every day?
Well, that's a great question. One of the biggest values you can have, especially with what AP specializes in the CM at risk process, 97+% of our work is CM at risk, construction manager at risk. With that, you get all sorts of early estimates, you get pre-construction, you get all these little tack-ons that a hard bid job does not. VDC fits fantastically into that formula that AP already has built out as its bread and butter. What you get is kind of a cultural shift. Back in the day, and I'm sure you've seen this, Dave, that design teams were not as stretched thin, didn't have this complexity, didn't have this, used to, you might request a 90%, they say that's 90% drawing. It's probably between that 85 and 90% drawing.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky. But I mean, back in the past, it was closer. Now, if they say it's 90%, it's 65, or maybe sometimes it's not even 55, or it's just DDs. We're starting as early as possible. We're getting people, specifically trades, bought out to help. When I don't have VDC on a project, and I've seen this in past lives, there's no VDC on a project, you have higher rework, you have more RFIs that are change orders, you get the RFIs that are late.
Yeah, and all those things cost money, right? And time, which is the same thing as money in our business. If it costs you time, it's costing you money, right?
It costs you time, costs you money, and ultimately costs your reputation. So the thought was, whenever we kind of revamped this program a few years ago, we've got trades that are already doing VDC. We're looking for more complex projects. That it really, you spend the time up front, and there's a little bit of a dollar sign that sometimes people who are not familiar with the CM at risk process, oh, there's this many hours dedicated to VDC. It pays off dividends for that, that getting into and just coordinating out these issues in the model.
Awesome. So for any design team partners that are out there listening to this, I'll direct this one at Jordan.
Yeah.
If I'm a design team partner, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
What makes my life easier if I say, yeah, this is a great thing, let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So from a design perspective, at least we're here to help that design and tech get installed. We want exactly what the architect wants, is we want to bring it to life. And so through the VDC process, we are constantly having that open source of communication between trade partners, the GC, and subcontractors alike to make sure that it's installed properly with quality and with collaboration, so that everybody can feel, that their voice is being heard. and we can really make sure that no matter what, if there are constraints that we're running up on from install standpoint, that the design team feels included and they're a part of those decisions as we go along. And we're making them far enough ahead of time that we can pivot if need be, but ultimately we
Right.
make sure everything's done correctly.
One of the things I think as designers and speaking for them that they can't stand obviously is redrawing, right?
For sure.
Nobody has enough money to do it. And we certainly don't have time to do it. Sam, can you speak to maybe how our VDC process helps with that, with the redraw?
I honestly think it's a process that kind of cuts down on it. As being someone who's had to do drawings before, one of the worst things is once we start getting into Rev C, D, E, and we're sitting here sending documents out back and forth to teams where it's like we're not getting the point across. It's almost like we need to get in a meeting and look at this. And I kind of think that the 3D world kind of simplifies what the questions are. I can sit here and talk every day to a designer, and in some cases, they may not understand what's going on because we might be thinking on different wavelengths. And I think VDC kind of brings that 3D element where we can actually discuss things more finite and kind of get to the answer a little quicker.
Awesome. So I want to make a connection here that maybe your average person that might not make. I want to connect VDC and safety, because obviously safety is our culture. It's a fundamental of what we do. How can we connect VDC and safety? Is there a way to do that?
Absolutely. And I think the big thing here to understand about VDC and our bread and butter, if you haven't been in a model coordination meeting, the way to kind of explain it to someone who hasn't sat in a model coordination meeting, it's a coordination meeting in the model. I know it's kind of in the name. It sounds funny to say it that way, but really that's all it is. We're just picture us as a superintendent ahead of install. So when we're thinking about what's going to make the most sense logistics wise and kind of constructability wise, we're working closely with the superintendents in those virtual meetings. And Sam, he'll speak on it in a second here. He's working closely with, is this too stacked? Is this going to make sense for a maintenance guy? Is this going to cause a risk? Are we going to have 5 people installing at once? We can check that out in the model. Are we going to be trenching in an area? It's something that we can very quickly plan ahead instead of waiting until, oh, this is a trench that's also having a,
So it really goes to, in a way, identifying the risky activities on a project and using VDC to minimize the number of times we have to take those risky activities, right? Is that kind of what you're talking about?
No, 100%. I think that some of the bigger risk and safety is obviously slips and trips, right? And falls. One of the biggest ones we've used is drones on sites. When you have high up materials that you need to look at, it's 100 times better to put a drone up there in 5 minutes than get a guy who might need to tie off, and you have to worry about the possibility of falling. Some of the other areas I've seen, kind of what Jacob had talked about, is identifying like areas for access. A MIMO zone's only as good as a MIMO zone can actually be,
Wait a minute, what's that?
A move in, move out zone.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I've been in some situations where once kind of design gets a little bit ahead and we start placing things in the building, you block off MIMO zones, which is a quick problem is the easiest way to say it. Because that's obviously how you're going to get in and out of the building if anything, critical happens and you need to save lives. Another big one is kind of showing the access to valves. There's a reason they put valves on some of these pipes. It's so if we have a critical issue that happens or a meltdown in the building, we can shut down, that chemical or gas that's coming into the system. So we find ourselves identifying those more than we'd like to, where there's actually a big mistake and it's been blocked by conduits.
Right.
How are you going to get up there without, 2 ladders and a rubber band? I don't know. So
How about speak to what VDC can do for us from I'm not sure what the right terminology is, as-built, legacy, existing conditions. I guess it's amazing to me sometimes when we go into an existing building and, things aren't documented. We don't know where valves are. We don't know what this valve controls, what this one doesn't. How does VDC help that?
For sure. So if we have a project where we're remodeling, a lot of times, we go behind and we'll document that either via a laser scan or through open space. Open space is another thing we really, really do like to utilize. And that is a 360-degree camera. We put that on our hard hats. And we use this regardless of if it's a remodel or if it's a new project. So we have someone out walking the site almost every day on some projects. Other projects moving a little slower, so we don't have as much to capture. But really as much as possible to capture the progress of the project. And then eventually we get this full record and kind of timeline and story of how this building came together, where we can look back behind walls and behind things to see, hey, where are pipes running here? Where's conduit? Where are these things located within these walls? It's kind of this ultimate as-built. And we've figured out a way with open space to have a final turnover that's independent from the website. So, 30 years down the line, say open space is just no longer a website, or they've been bought out by some other corporation or whatever. Technology changes and the world changes around us pretty darn fast. So independent of that, it'll always be there for them to access for record.
Great. Again, going back to the previous generation of doing this, pulling out a set of old dusty as-built drawings that have been buried in some maintenance guy's closet for the last 20 years and trying to find them is always a challenge. So it's fun to see that what you're doing is going to help us a lot with that. So
For sure.
awesome. Well, this was a great conversation, and we're probably running a little short on time here, so I'll wrap it up. I just have one final question for the group. That is, when do I get to fly the drones?
You're welcome anytime, Dave. You actually, believe it or not, if you don't have to have a license, as long as we're within handshot, we can knock it out of your hand or grab it in case you decide you want to do something crazy.
Yeah, you probably should have said no to that question, but since you said yes, we'll take you up on it.
Absolutely.
So anyway, thanks for being here today. This is a great conversation, and that's it for today on Digging with Dave, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys.